chicks are the sleekest. Wacha nikwambie dem akikuacha. By the time ana step, you'll be like, oh my. Remember in your podcast, must tell us what the podcast is about.
Let's talk
Willis Raburu.
Willis Raburu and Mary Prude. Yes. Hiyo jina inaishia hapo sababu waliachana. It's not getting better, yo.
It's gonna be a while.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, and welcome to Living Truthfully, the podcast. Yes, we are back. And why that's even good is because I have guests you've been wanting to talk to. Are you ready? Because today we have the man, the energy ball, the guy, yani, ukimwona unajua kume. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Willis Raburu. A big tune.
Yeah,
Breaking glass.
Yes, sir. Yeah, niko poa sana.
Uko fiti?
Yeah.
First, thank you so much for making time.
Thank you. Yeah, man. Thank you so much. I told you, one of my brother-in-law,
Yeah.
Mr. Kevin Kibe.
Yeah.
Big shout out to Mr. Kevo. He's only introduced me to Living Truthfully some time back.
Yeah.
And I used to listen to you a lot in the gym.
That's crazy.
That was
man.
my time. Nilikuwa naweka and nasikia hapo could drop my truth bombs. And like you said, a lot of empathy as well.
Yeah.
Which I found very interesting because in the space of men akunanga yo mambo ya.
It's crazy, right?
It's just like si ukunywe, tunywe.
Tunywe.
Alafu sasa asubuhi.
Have a shot.
Yeah, just have a shot. Are you going through something?
Yeah,
have a shot. And you
let me
don't
buy
talk
you
about
a
the
beer.
thing. Yeah, but
I
this
know.
one was amazing
So
conversation.
the beer wasn't working for me.
Yeah.
And in fact, now I don't drink at
At
all.
all?
Yeah.
Kamsa.
Kapsa.
All right.
But
I
then I used to have, a little here and there. I've never really been a drinker, but that was never a solution for me.
Yeah.
You know that you're going through something, have a drink.
Yeah.
So I realized that I needed, and that's how this podcast started. It started because I was going through my own drama.
Right.
I thought I was the villain in my story.
Mm.
And because I was the villain in my story, and I was in pain, I didn't have permission
Right.
to say that I'm in pain.
Mm.
Si ni mashida za kujitakia.
Nataka munisaidie. Niko na mashida.
Niko na mashida. Na ni mimi mwenyewe nimejiletea.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel like I had permission.
Right.
But I realized that unless I actually expressed what I was feeling, I will never be able to get past it. So nikasema kama watu watanisikiza, na si ati watu walikuwa wamekataa kunisikiza.
Right.
But I didn't know where to.
There's no outlet.
Yeah. So I said, let me create the outlet. That's how Living Truthfully was formed. It was an outlet for my own expression.
Yeah.
And so that let me call it the first season of Living Truthfully was really my processing. And it was processing of my lost marriage. It was processing of, I'd shut down a business. It was processing of just the masculinity journey, And you're like, it's not...
Raising people.
Yeah, raising young people.
Yeah.
So you said you're 4 and 3, mine are 17 and 15.
Tell you what, man. I'll come for notes. I hope unaka memoirs.
Niko na memoirs, mahali.
Yeah.
So I have... so that's what it was about. And it was... I tell people that first season, it was me processing. You guys just had the privilege of listening.
Hey, it was just chilling in your room, in your living room. Yeah. But it was so interesting because you see what happened when I remember the first listen to it. And so what I like to do with the podcast sometimes, I don't like to, if I'm introduced to a podcast and maybe people have done like 10 or more episodes, I don't like just starting from sequentially.
Yeah.
Of course, just to get the intro.
Yeah.
That's why they normally say, remember in your podcast, every intro must tell us what the podcast is about. So I jumped to like podcast number 5, episode 5, 6, 7, Nuko.
Yeah.
By the time I was coming in, you had released, I think the last time you had like 80-something. Yeah, but I came in, Nuko, matu at this.
Oh,
So I jumped in, Nuko, I listened to 7, 12, Vivo.
Yeah.
The thing that was shocking to me, and I was even telling my brother, was that, how is this guy... How are these people talking about these things so openly? It was refreshing. It was scary.
Yeah.
I was scared for you.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what?
I was scared for me.
Yeah. I was like, how are you, again, just, I always say like, if you're if you are you've been in the TV space and everything, so you sort of live life in an aquarium.
Yes.
So everybody gets to see, oh, the fish is sleeping today, the fish is not.
Yeah.
So for you to then come and say that this is things I'm going through. Hey, this thing is hard. Botch, your house helps. Oh, who cleans my house? Oh, raising kids. Oh, I'm like, what? But because around that time I was also going through my own stuff. I was like, so this, and I was getting bashed for sometimes just like you said, I'm a ball of energy.
Yeah.
So people didn't know this side of grief, sadness, and subliminals, because we all have that point where lazima mtu asikie umemrushia kakitu. So for me, it was so refreshing, and that then other men were helping the conversation along. I was like, wow. Like what when I was ongelea hizi vitu na hatukunywi
is that we want to have those conversations.
Yeah.
We just don't feel safe.
That's it.
We don't feel safe. And
safe.
I tell people, I tell especially women, when I started doing the podcast, then I'd get a lot of feedback, both from men and women. And I realized that's when I actually realized that the issue is safety. Is we don't want to feel judged. We're already judging ourselves. By the time, and we'll talk about it, but by the time you're going through your, say, like marriage loss, even if you're not the villain in your story, more often than not, we know what part we played. We're already judging ourselves, right? You know that then in the conversation you have with the next person, you're already coming with it from a point of you already know your judgment.
Like you're living with yourself.
You're living with the judgment of yourself.
You wake up and you look at yourself in the mirror every day.
Yeah, and then now you don't want any more judgment.
Right.
And so because most people will not hold space for you to even sit with your emotions, we don't talk.
And you cover it up. You get Band-Aids.
We actually have a formula. We don't know, but we have a formula. We either hide, deny, or suppress those emotions. But they don't run away from us. They come back in another form of energy. But anyway, we'll talk about that.
My man.
Mr. Willis.
Yeah.
How are you first?
I'm great. And it's not just great because of saying great, because you've asked me the question, but I think I'm actually at a point in life, especially at the starting of the year, where I think I'm more aware of who I am, what I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm more aware of where I want to go. I won't say it's all figured out, but I have sort of like a general direction and ready to embrace. It might work, it might not work, but there's a general direction. You see, like you see the way like we put on your Google Maps, and it tells you, you're going to get there in 23 minutes and you're there despite heavier than usual traffic. You will arrive at. But hawajui kuna makara wa Kenya kwa barabara. Wanasimamisha tu hivi. Wanatulia tu sasa kwa simu, So I'm ready for how I've learned to live life by saying that's where I want to be. Whether it's an amount of money, whether it's a material thing, whether it's an emotional state. That's where I want to be. So, okay, cool. How do I work backwards towards that? And I think that has really helped me so much.
Right.
So right now, I can say I'm definitely not where I was, and I'm getting to where I want to be.
So there's a question I ask my friends,
right,
when I'm trying to check in and find out how they're doing. So, and the question I usually ask is, how is your mind? And I think a bit of the answer you've given me is where your mind is.
Right.
But so do you have a different? If I asked you how's your mind, is there anything else you'd have wanted to add to that question?
Yes. I would say my mind is, if I were to give an imagery, my mind is Limuru Road, if you've been there, when it's just around 6:30. Okay. So it's not, the fog is just enough for you to see.
Okay.
It's not still mbaya that you have to work a hazard.
Yes.
You can see where I'm going, but you're like, still, I have to be driving carefully. Yes. That's where my mind is at. If I would put imagery to, and that is because
such a good image.
Yeah, and that is because, like I told you, there are some things actually, and I was just reading about it early on, which has also helped me a lot. I'm really reading more.
Yeah.
And they were talking about like this turn of the year is a time where, of course, Chinese is the year of the snake, which represents shading off and new things. It's also the number 9, which spiritually is you are going through sort of transition as you go to now the higher level, which is 10.
Yeah.
So I think that's where I'm at, and those are some, and it's not so clear because of the hard decisions that I have to make. When you realize that, man, I'm not going to go to this journey with all of my friends. I'm going to have to shed some habits. I'm going to have to make some changes. And then what are those changes going to look like? Tyler Perry says it's so scary. Success is such a lonely journey that sometimes you realize that as you go higher, you know, the way when you get at the airport and they say, you have like 2 luggage na 1 carry-on. After hiyo tunakucharge. Sasa sisi ubaya yetu kwa maisha, we pay for the extra luggage, even though we know we don't need it. Umefika hapo, no, sorry, you're only around 2. Nasema, no, it's okay.
No, but
yeah, bag lazima.
I've been carrying it since I was 15.
It's like when they tell you, no, you can't go with this cologne. Like, unajua nilinunua hii cologne pesa ngapi? Amwezi ifunga tuende nayo mbele. So that's where it is. But for me, it's a beautiful place because I can actually say that's where I am. You know, before you would ask me where's your mind, I'm like, no, Amani, I don't know. Me niko tu. Now I know that this is where I am. So now let's work towards that.
With it. So let me ask a question about the fog, and that it's such a good image. And for those of you that don't know Limuru,
right.
So Limuru is a part of our country that is just literally maybe 15-20 kilometers out of Nairobi. But it's right before you start the escarpment into the Rift Valley. And it's a very cold area, and Kenyan cold, not a very cold area, and you have this really heavy fog and mist in the wee hours of the morning. What he's describing is when the mist is about to start clearing out, but you still don't have 100% visibility, but you can start to see maybe 100 meters ahead of you or 50 meters ahead of you. But, you know, when you talk about fog, and I think about a foggy mind, I don't just think about visibility. I think about also just my ability to have clarity of thought. Just when I have a foggy mind, and I do have that every so often, I can't think. So my question to you is the fog just the visibility that I cannot see ahead as far, or is it also there's a lot of things going on? I can't function. I'm not functioning at home.
Right. So for me, the fog is not. It's not the lack of functioning. It is, again, same imagery. You're on the road.
Yeah.
You understand that because this place looks like this, I cannot speed. If you're really, really new to the area, utaweka hazard, you know, but at least you can see. So you can, like say, you can see 100 meters.
So it's the visibility.
So you can see the 100 meters, right? Yeah. What that means is that you go to the 100, then you go to the next 100, then you go to the next 100 until you get to Canairo.
And that's fine.
So that's where I know
how everybody is doing life.
So that's where mimi ninaenda. Kuenda naye tunaenda. I know we are going. I'm not going to say, hey, this is too much. Let me park the car sasa and wait. Yeah. Because again, parking the car, unaweza gongo.
From the back.
So I'm like, nah, let's just keep moving. I'm taking life 100 meters at a time.
100 meters. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
In fact, 100 meters is a lot. It might be 50 meters.
Yeah.
So the next question I ask my friends is then, how is your heart?
My heart, beautiful.
My
heart is, and it's not been this way for the past. I don't think I felt this way in the past 4.5, 5 years.
Okay.
And I say because it's the same, and I like when I was a journalist, and it's always held true for me. With a lot of things going on, I say time remains the only bearer of truth. And I think that over these years, I've processed a lot. I've gone through a lot of changes. My kids are here, new relationship, new entrepreneurial journey. And so for my heart, I say it's beautiful because, and it's not beauty out of just, "Ooh, we are flowers." It is beauty out of the process it's been through. We enjoy wine, but umeona watu wakikanyaga when they step on the grapes.
On the grapes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've been through that threshing, and now we are at the wine stage. But still need to be careful with wine because of how you handle it. When you're going to wanashikanga kama wine glass, kama whiskey glass, change the temperature. So I'm in a beautiful place because I know my feelings, I know my emotions, I know processes. I'm now knowing some of my triggers. Therapy is still amazing for me. So now, and I'm open again. Yeah, I'm now a bit more open to things in all areas of life. So that to me, and it's very interesting. I should start asking my friends these questions because as I talk about it, when I'm like, nimetoka far.
And it's such a good recognition of it. You've said words in the last maybe few minutes. Every time you've answered my questions, you've said words that have told me you've been in therapy.
Yes. Oh, right. I have my telltale signs.
No. There's a language because when you start to create that awareness of where I am, where I'm at, where I've come from, what my progress is, what is the process, what are my triggers, what are those things that I need to watch out for, or what are the tools that I go to when I'm in trouble. That says you've gone through a process where you've learned some of these things. We don't learn them naturally. So if you'll allow me, let's talk about that. How has therapy been for you?
Therapy in the beginning, it was crazy, and this is because, like we were talking about earlier, you are not used to letting people in.
Yes.
First of all, just as a human. Second, as somebody who's seen like a celebrity, or known, let's say popular. So your first instinct is, okay, I'm going to tell this person this thing, and then over dinner that night will be like, you wouldn't believe who walked in the door today, honey. Oh, watu wako na shida. Na wakamwambianga watu wa TV wanakuanga na shida. Hautaki kunisikia. Wacha nikwambie.
Exactly. I know that feeling.
So I was like, do I really want to? So the first three, I was still kind of guarded. But it's a beautiful thing about therapists is because that they have a way of just letting you feel like you're in control and then asking you questions, and then actually it's amazing to me what they can do with a set of questions. And point back to you, and then by the third session she told me like, hey, so this is what I think is going on, and you will correct me if I'm wrong. And she said A, B, C, D. And she said, you're guarded. It has a little bit to do with even your childhood. I said, I'm like, childhood? We didn't even hatukuongea hiyo mambo.
My childhood was fine.
So approval and stuff like that, and you're afraid of yourself, and like you're afraid of going in. She's saying, I was afraid of dealing with the darkness. So I'm afraid of, like you're saying, what was your role in where you are, taking responsibility. It's always like, it's them, and they did this and they did that. So then after that, I was like, okay, all right, okay. So I thought to myself, you know what, if when you go to a doctor, and this is like a physician, you don't necessarily ask. There are those like dentists, they have like a things uko on the wall, like nilienda ishule etc. And more or less, you normally just go and say, hey, niaje, I feel like ABCD. You don't ask, sasa kabla unitibu, unaweza toa certificate yako. Same thing when people tune into my shows, when they don't ask, like, hey, what's your qualification? What's your background in this thing? And so I said, the same way I went to school and I read for these things and I'm able to do it, and I'm held by, as a journalist, I'm held by certain rules and standards that I adhere to, right of reply, etc. And let me give this lady here a benefit of the doubt, and let's see how this goes. So we started going, but every time I would go to therapy and even talk about my late daughter, funny thing I would feel like the exact same way. Like, I remember when I was in the hospital after I got the news and everything, I felt some pain in my leg. I felt an excruciating headache, and sometimes that's exactly how I would leave therapy. Like after talking about it, like I have a headache, and I remember I would go to the car and just sit fast, and then I would not even make it home because those days I used to live in Langata, so I would come halfway. My aunt used to live in Kilimani, and sleep it off fast, and then like maybe, which also would help me with the traffic because I don't like traffic. So sleep it off and then now go. But over time, it started becoming not really. I don't know if I want to use the word easier. Let's say lighter. Yeah. So it started becoming lighter. I started opening up more. And I used this, people used to keep diaries. I never used to. What's the big deal about writing your feelings on a piece of paper? I know what I feel. Sure, Nico Sawa. I don't
need to write down
it down to know what I'm
feeling.
talking about. She writes you your younger self a letter. She writes your ex a letter.
Future
Junior.
self
I'm like,
a letter.
I know what I want to say. Siyapige simu nimshow. But after writing down, I remember writing some of those letters and even writing my daughter a letter and all that. I would not get through writing it. I would break down.
Wow.
One specific time, and I'll challenge people to do this, especially if you've been in a dark place and you haven't tried it before. One time I remember, I was told to go just look in the mirror and say, I love you, Willis. Just that I was like, psh, ha, sawa. Why? Wacha nikuwa. Gentleman. Ile machozi nililia ile ya makamasi.
Yeah. Ugly crying.
Because I went and I said that, then I realized I've told everybody in my life that I love them. I've done things to try to prove they said love. I've gone out of my way, sacrificed for everybody apart from myself. And that day, I think it was a good 1.5, 2 hour cry. It was.
Do you know actually envy?
It was quite something.
Do you know actually envy? I envy you because of that process. So I've recently been interrogating myself, and as you do, once you go through therapy, and once you figure out tools of how to process and interrogate yourself, it becomes a lifelong thing. Whether you're in a therapy session or not, it becomes a lifelong thing. So I interrogate myself a lot, and recently I was interrogating some of the things that are blocking me from getting the things that I want. And I realized that sometimes, I suffer from incredible imposter syndrome. Danny, people will not believe it.
Man,
but
you and me both.
This confidence that I walk with out
Crazy,
here,
yeah.
sometimes it has to come from, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. You know, you really... So I suffer from, and that many times I feel like I don't deserve it. And I've had to start to tell myself, you deserve it. So why I envy you is because that part of you deserve it, Amani Maranga, I deserve this success, I deserve this good thing, also needs to come from a place from self-love.
Right.
And I've said this before. That thing that you say, I love, and you tell yourself, I'm going to try it. I'm going to tell myself I love you. But do you know that God expects you to love yourself?
And you go right there, yeah.
The scripture that says, Jesus was asked about the greatest commandment. And he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, your strength, your mind, your soul, depending on whatever version you use.
King James.
King James. Then he goes on to say, and the second greatest commandment is love your neighbor
as you love yourself.
As yourself. And we've always focused on the part of your neighbor because the assumption is that we already know how to love ourselves.
Wow.
But the prerequisite for loving your neighbor is that you love yourself. And I actually went looking for what does this mean? What does loving yourself mean? Because it certainly doesn't mean be selfish. What God cannot have been telling people, be selfish, And the only thing I could find was a love chapter, the 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient, love is kind, love is not jealous, does not keep a record of wrong, blah, blah, blah. Then I asked, okay, can I use this standard on myself? Amani Maranga, are you patient with yourself? Are you kind to yourself? Do you keep your own record of wrong? And so I think the journey of self-love is such an important journey for men especially, because like you rightfully said, we will sacrifice for everybody else. And I'm not saying women don't, but we will sacrifice for everybody else and forget ourselves. I envy you for that moment, but I envy you also for crying. I envy you for crying and for crying because of self-love. You guys, my tears are so hard to come by. And I'm looking for them. Sometimes I want them. I want them because I want that release. But I can't find them. So I envy you.
And I do hope you'll find them. I think for you, the day that they actually do come.
I think I'll lose another like 5
You'll be like, I tell you what, man, you'll be like Mutana drive kutoka hapa Mumbai. I think you'll cry for like 5-6 hours. But it happens because, and it's probably things that are just, I don't want to say it's a perception or whatever. It's just things that are still it's the fog. But that doesn't mean that they're not there. No, they're definitely there, and it's gonna come.
And I when I've experienced sadness, or when, like the other day, last year, I lost a couple of friends, and I was in one of the funeral services, and the wife and kids were doing their tributes, and I empathized with them, and for their sadness, I cried. So I find them a few times. Lakini kuna zile zangu ziko stop for my own for my own release that I have not. I want to cry. I know it's not a good. I want.
Yeah. I mean, it will come. Try the mirror work.
I'll try.
Try mirror work, and just say something also about mirror work. Mirror work and shadow work really helped me unbox things that were there within. I never used to. Now, definitely, the past 4 years, I've become more emotional, of course, and more in touch with that side of me that wasn't there before. But even just, you mentioned something about love, and I always like saying this because I discovered this some time back when I was reading also saying 1 John 4:8b, and for those who close to me have probably heard me talk about this, when it says, he who does not love does not know God, because God is love. And for me, that jumped out to me, and I realized that it did not say, because it would have been, and I looked at all the text, they would have said God is like love. It's like an example. But it actually says God
it's a definition.
Love, right? So
it's a definition
for me, it basically meant then that using the English language, it's like God is the synonym of love. So going back to 13, even if you read it that way, where it says love, you replace God. God is patient. He's not jealous. He does not keep a record of wrong. It's the same thing. And so, and I remember when I said, when I then went and told somebody,
hey, Willis, ngaja. Hey,
hallelujah.
That is deep.
That's yeah.
That is deep. Okay, continue.
It's the discovery I made. And I just thought about, so when I went and now when I look and tell somebody I'm in love with you, then what am I saying? He says I'm in God with you. So that means that whatever God says about you, I accept. Tuko in agreement, says na Mungu. The way God says I love you, if the way God says I express Him, because if I say I love you, I'm expressing God. And it makes it a bit easier to go through a couple of things. For me, that is the realization I got. And then now, if you're saying, then Willis, I love you and I'm in love with you, and it means that I'm also in God with you. If God says you're a victor, then you're a victor. If God says you love yourself as you love, then definitely. niko ndani. If I'm a success, I'm a success. If I'm more than a conqueror, if he's not giving me fear, but a sound mind, then I locate. And that's just exactly what
Boss, man. But yeah.
the one that I had to come by. So if it says also that Jesus went to the synagogue and said it found in the Bible where it is written. That also tells me a lot of things about life. Is he found, so alitafuta, he found where it is written, but the Bible says he is the word, right? So alijipata, he found himself in scripture. And then he said, Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, for he has sight to the blind, year of Jubilee.
Isaiah
61. But he found himself. So wewe pia wewe, if you're still in this God, still in the same love, you have to find yourself somewhere. What is written about you in you? Because you're going to have to find who is Amani inside, who is Willis inside. I need to find out what is written about me. And the things that are written about you are, first of all, from the foundations, the things that even before you're born, that God put, that this is Amani's part. Before you're born in you, this podcast is going to happen. But for you, it is now for you. It is, the Bible says the desire of God to hide a thing, and it's for kings to search it out. So you need to search out ni nini huyu Amani ni nani huko ndani. What does Amani say about Amani? And the true essence of that is in God. If you find that, then you're well on your way.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, the Right Reverend Willis.
Dude. The Right Reverend.
Dude. That's
Yep.
No, I don't think you understand the depth of the conversation you're having. So I recently was in a little seminar. And it's in the effort of self-improvement, self-discovery, And this guy was saying that when we're trying to change from one place to another, or trying to better ourselves, So often we look for strategy. Yeah? The how to. If I do this, if I do 10 push-ups every day, boom. If I do, or whatever it is, whether if I read 5 books a month, or then I will improve So that's strategy. And it says the strategy it's true, it works. But that's like the last thing to do. So there are 3 S's. It says strategy, 1, but that's the end. In the middle is the story. It's your story. It's a story you tell yourself.
Very important that you tell yourself.
The story that your narrative, the narrative that you carry. So if you carry the narrative, I am foolish, it doesn't matter how many books you read. Until you change that story,
that's it.
You will still think of yourself as foolish. Okay? And maybe there's some reason for humility. But if you keep saying if you keep giving yourself a negative story, it doesn't matter how much strategy you put into place. The narrative that you tell yourself, that's what is going to, that's what's going to carry the day.
The prevailing. Yeah.
Now let me even just, because you've gone there, let's go.
Okay.
When Moses asked God, when I go, and they tell me who sent me, who do I say? Who do I say sent me? And he said,
I am that I am.
I am. Tell them, I am. And one of my recent discoveries, and I knew this in my head, but now it's become very real for me, is that the statements I make about I am become true.
Yeah.
I am giving myself identity.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And what you're saying is now it becomes even more important, because you're saying in that journey of self-discovery, that journey, like you're saying, you have to go through that process of finding self. In that journey, that it's very important that I start to tell myself the right things. So if I'm saying I love you, Amani, if I'm telling Amani I love you, I'm telling Amani I, God, you. So I'm agreeing with God about you. I am now saying I am patient, I am kind, I am the apple of God's eye, I am the things that God has said I am. That's the narrative I need to believe and get my identity from, as opposed to all those other things that society, noise, my mistakes, blah, 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 have given me and I've taken as my identity.
Right.
I am divorced.
That's who you are, man. But that's not your...
It's not an identity. No. In fact, it's not I am divorced. It is my marriage ended.
Yeah.
I shouldn't claim an identity.
Right. Because that would mean that even the next one, yeah.
It's so crazy what you're saying. So anyway, the first S is the state. So it's your state of mind, it's your state of body, state, story,
okay,
and strategy.
Good.
But dude, you're so deep, Maze.
My partner Ivy says, "Niko deep ka depend." Yeah.
You've mentioned a couple of losses that you went through, and it's crazy when you're talking about your psychosomatic symptoms. So your headaches, your leg pain.
Yeah. Crazy.
When you talk about your loss. And I know a lot of your loss is in the public domain, so I don't want to talk about that especially. But if you were to help someone process loss, and loss here, I'm putting loss in general because you've lost a child, you've lost a marriage, you recently went through a loss with a gig. Yeah. So it's in different forms. If I came to you and I was going through some loss, what is it that you would say? How do you help someone process loss and grief? But
I think the first thing I would say, and just to preface what you're talking about, is like when you're going through loss, especially when you go through heavy loss. And I remember because mine kind of happened almost at the same time in terms of the loss of my daughter and the loss of my marriage. Imagine everything sort of feels like loss. It's like the world is now plotting against you. I'll give you an example. During that time, I was actually packing to go to therapy. So in the basement. And you know the way like when I'm packing pale, then a guy just came and flew. I'm like, Kwani, I can't get anything. Like everything is just, and I cried. I broke down. I'm like, yani kila kitu tu. I'm losing everything.
And it's a small thing. It's just someone who's
but for me, I'm like,
it comes with all that.
Like everything is lost. So somebody has come to me. I think, first of all, it is very important to realize what is going on. Especially if this said person who comes to me is a man. Because I remember during that time, people would come to me but ask me, but hey, Basi, just make sure you take care of Mama Bana. She's going through a tough time. Make sure you're strong for Mama. You make sure, And very few people, and I'm happy that you talked about how deliberate you are in checking in on your friends and saying, how's your mind, how's your heart? Another person I know who does that, who doesn't let me go until I tell him how I actually am, is Marcus Solang. Marcus will not just say, how are you? You're good? Then you're walking away. No, he'll stop, he'll put his hand on your shoulder. Say, are you good?
In that way, we are cut from
it's like, are you good? Are you really okay? So the first thing I'll tell them is that recognize what has happened. There'll be the 5 stages of grief. But first of all, just recognize, and this thing has happened. It's painful. And I need to sometimes just sit there. I just need to feel, I need to cry, I need to be upset. process how you want to process. For me, I used to go for long drives. In these drives, I also need to be careful because sometimes you're driving, but you're absent-minded. So that's why I would mostly go to the what do you call it? The bypass. So I go Kikuyu huko and come back huko, toke huko Airtel and drive back up Pivo like that. Where there's no like traffic, so I'm just more or less garina, sort of garina nyumbani sort of thing. So I'll tell them first of all, acknowledge what has happened, acknowledge that you're going through it, acknowledge that you yourself, even if you do need to take care of other people first, but you need to take care of yourself first. That way, then you can be able to take care of other people. Number two, I'll tell them it's gonna be a while. It's not gonna go away. There are going to be stages, especially if it's loss of a loved one. There is the initial loss, the shock, it's happened. Then there is retelling the story. What happened? What happened? Tell the story again. People come, what happened? People come, what happened? And then there is now dealing with what society has to, what are the prevailing thoughts of the society on this? For example, for me, there were people telling me, usijali bana, at least Mungu alijua mbona. Unajua maybe angekuwa cheesy. I had one of my relatives tell me probably grow up akuue. Another one told me, because you do 10 over 10 and you mislead people's children, God had to take away your child. I had all sorts of crazy things. And these are like tight, close. No, not tight anymore. But what would people in your inner circle? Like, you get in a room like this, you see Willis crying there, but you have the opportunity to be at least around. Yeah. So your version of encouragement, me, kukuhitna realities. I had people tell me, yes, get through this quick because, the solution to loss is to get a baby, quick succession. They're not even thinking about now we've lost the baby. And remember, the milk is still going to be coming for the mom. You're still like 3 or 4 days out of hospital, so you're still changing the things they don't tell you. You're still changing the blood and everything, and yes, so you're still catering for the wound. The pain is still there. All these things are things you'll have to process. So they're not telling you that there's a process to this thing. Then, after you deal with the society, whether you're Christian, Muslim, it's there what religion says about
the religious narrative.
Yes, the religious narrative about your situation. So you have to be aware, alive to that as well. And then after that, now there's a process because the other reality will hit you, like you said, at the funeral. Now when you're sitting there and you're listening to people talk about your loved one, so that's another reality as well. Then, for child loss, I would say the first reality is when you get home and they're not there anymore. And it will happen even if it's for somebody older, your mother, your father, your brother, etc. When you get home, after everybody has gone home, even if there's a funeral, after everybody has gone home, then you actually get there. And if it's your wife or husband, they're no longer at the side of your bed. If it's a room you prepared for your baby is no longer, it's not there to...
You see the gap, the physical gap
is there. Like for me, one of the things that we had to do, and thank God for some of my relatives, what they quickly did as we were still in hospital processing, they went home and they removed, because we had set up the room and everything, so they pulled everything down, packed it up, because we had things already prepared, the baby cot, they dismantled it, packed that up, all these things, Then, you're leaving the hospital and you're like, as you're walking past, there are people happy going into the cars with their babies, and you're like, hey, that would have been me. So I would say to somebody, you will have to, the reason I'm saying it doesn't go away is you see these things that are happening, the things that are being said, the words, the feelings you're getting as you're going home, the feeling of even your partner, if it's child loss, of your partner, what they're feeling, what they're saying, what they're not saying, how they're acting. All these things are part of the process. And if you do say that, then you're lying to yourself and you break down ukombele. And that happened to me sort of because of what I was kept being told, make sure you take care of her, take care of her, take care of her, take care. I did. I was taking care of her, taking care of her, taking care of her. but they're not taking care of me. So then in Africa point, when
and there was nobody taking care of you.
There was nobody. I mean, they would try, but then you see also it's new territory.
Yeah.
I've tried to speak now. How many? The response has been God knows and futa mbona Mungu amewakubali ifanyike kama job, you know, there was reason and all that stuff.
And the child would have killed you.
Yes. So I'm like, wacha nisionge. Are you okay now? I just say, okay, it's bad, but I'm dealing with it. But I don't know how. Also at that point, it's not that me and God are close. In fact, I would flip the channel nikipata preacher and azimaraka sana. I didn't want anything to do with God. And that was not accepted. Nobody would like, Jay, what do you mean you don't want to? I know. It's just that I'm pissed off. You see, I believe now that prayer, first of all, is conversation. Yes, there is the Rashavana Naya, Robo Shaka, watch a pencil. Eco. There's a place for 3 hours in the closet for prayer. Yeah. There's a place for thanksgiving and then asking and all those things. But I believe that prayer is just a conversation. When I was in high school, when I was being crazy, my sister would say, because you're crazy, nobody else understands you, and it's only me who understands you. And even if I think I understand you, you do something that then it makes me not understand you. I used to pray a lot for you. These days, I just wake up and say, God help Willis. Amen. And that's a prayer. That's a conversation. God
agreed.
And for me, I realized that I was praying and not praying. Why? Because I was telling God, I remember I was telling God, sasa wewe, walikuwa natuambia kwa church, every day speak life to your baby. That's what I used to do. Lay hands on the baby. And even as I would speak, the baby would kick. Somebody say, your daddy, you're blessed, you'll be a blessing, nini, all that stuff. All your limbs are formed, all these things. Praying every day. Tulikuwa kwa church tukiomba every single, in fact, tulikuwa tunaenda hata convention. As the atmosphere, you know, they create the atmosphere for power. We did all of that. So I said, I did all these things. Now, where ulikuwa najua hii siku itafika? You didn't give me no heads up. You didn't prepare me. And then you're trying to tell me how to unanipenda. All things work together for good. Make me understand. I didn't realize that was, I know now that was also prayer. And I think God responds to authenticity more than anything. And I was like, so, saizi tumeishana. I'm not going to listen to your word. And I don't know where I'm going to be 3-4 months down the line. But I don't want you or your people. Don't be sending them pastors to me. Don't be sending them deacons, elders, sister, brother. Siwataki wote. Nyinyi na Mungu yenyu, park it somewhere else. Tafuta mti ingine mukai chini. I'm not that guy. Same to my ex-wife now at the time. So that's how we were. So I would say, go through all those things. And even after you've gone through memorial, burial, back home, you're going to have to deal again with yourself and the other person. So be very cautious, especially if you're in a relationship. Be very cautious about how your grief is affecting the other person, how both of you are processing grief differently. And then also, definitely, you and I now know, go for therapy, because then that helps a third party, if you're in a relationship or even just solo, to unbox for you what it is you're going through. That, for me, helped me a lot to understand where I'm at. And then also be aware that you'll get triggers. For me, because I stayed with my daughter after she was taken to the cold room in the morgue, I stayed there for like 1.5, 2 hours, just looking at her. And some of the pictures I have of her are there. And so for me, even when I'm in the supermarket and I was going through the fridge, yogurt nini, and I feel that kabaridi, it used to make me shake kidogo. So you're going to get those moments where you're like, woof, what's that? Then you realize, you'll get the anniversaries are also coming. It will mean different things for different people. So basically just get ready for process. Like we said, 100 meters at a time, a day at a time, an hour at a time. One day you'll wake up happy. One day you'll just wake up and be missing. This happened to me because the anniversary is normally, she was in the 31st, like in the cusp of the new year. So it's normally a very difficult time for me because guys are celebrating Happy New Year, but I remember what happened for me. So it will happen. Sometimes I remember like in October of last year sometime. I was just driving and I got to a place, parked the car, I was about to leave, and then I was just like, hey man, I lost a daughter, and I broke down. This is like 5 years after. Still breaking down. And somebody who helped me understand that actually was Julie Gishuru, and she used to tell me that she's actually the one who told me during that time I was going through. She's like, for me at the time, I think it had been 7 or 8 years since she lost her child, and she was like, imagine I still cry. And not even at the anniversary, like just randomly. So, and I have other kids. Does it mean that I don't love these kids? No, it means that I absolutely love them. But it's just, everybody is unique. Fingerprints unique, life unique. So every one person is unique. You don't have somebody to replace. Easy job. Ati sasa Willis ayuko to number 10. Sasa good man na Aziz wakawapo wanafanya job poa. So tuendelee. This is life. You can't just replace somebody that you don't just switch such things off. And the same for going through loss of a marriage. Do not lie to yourself. Ati, you'll wake up tomorrow after the divorce, you finally have the letter, cheti cha talaka. Ati now you don't love this person. Ni uongo. Bado nampenda bwana. You can't switch that thing off like this. It's impossible. Even if they are toxic, even if they are the most lovable persons and you left amicably, you can't switch it off. It's not a switch. All right, don't love you anymore. Woo, we are moving up. It is time. I remember I said time remains the bearer of truth. At that time, you'll be like, good riddance to bad rubbish. Unaweza kuweka subliminals pale kwa nini, it's a brand new year, new me. I don't need nini. Luggage gone. Oh, hashtag dues paid. Why? Utapatana na feelings zako square.
Yeah, for sure.
Either the last few minutes before you sleep, anytime you're alone. That's why sometimes people don't want to be alone. And I encourage people, and if you don't have, like for me, I had suicidal thoughts. So if you're not dealing with that part, then take some time alone. If not, always just have people around. And alone could be upstairs or in a room and people are there. If you have those tendencies, you need to protect yourself. But those few moments before you sleep, reality normally checks in. 15, 20 minutes before you sleep. When you're in the shower, reality normally checks in with you properly. When you're taking a number 2,
and you're in
you think about all your all these things, or something will happen, a song will play that reminds you of them. So even when you're dealing with that, if it's loss of a marriage, like you said, what role did I have in this thing? That includes being an enabler. Maybe you're enabling the toxicity. Maybe you are part of, even you are toxic, and she was just responding to your own toxicity. So that's how we are all in aura for aura.
Aura for aura. I've seen that.
So you have to realize what exactly was going on here. Why did I even get married in the first place? What initially attracted me to this person? Where did I sense that it actually started changing? Because there's a day, if you really trace it back, there's a day you're like, either it was a comment you let slip by or an action that happened and you didn't address it then, because sometimes men, we are thinkers. We want to process and find out technically what happened.
And sometimes we don't know what we're feeling, so we have to think about what we're feeling.
Exactly, so yes. And sometimes even, some people normally say, I remember TD Jakes once said, how come you leave this man and then you find a man or somebody else and you realize, hey, this guy's moved on so fast. But you are thinking the man checked out in November when he told you it's over. But really, it's been out since January.
And it works the other way around as well. Like, a chick will have checked out sometimes way before than.
And chicks, kwanza, let me tell you, men, sawa, chicks are the slickest. Wacha nikwambie dem akikuacha. By the time ana step, you'll be like, oh my.
She's processed it a long time ago.
And that's why I think it normally hurts more, because I think for ladies, now we are really trying to have both ladies and men process it fully, but for ladies, they really go deep in. Wanaenda kwa committee yao kwanza, wanaenda kwa self, they give you chances, but then they start saying, okay, sasa vile naona mtu, sioni nikata badilika. So therefore, anasema, I had somebody wait until the child got to 18 then left. But from 11 to 18,
they were not there.
They were not there. But they were functioning, including function at the junction.
Yeah. Wow.
Everything was working. But alijua tu mtoto akifika tu 18, anaisikae hapa. And as sure as
day
18th birthday, like this next day, akaambia huyu jamaa cheki. It's been real, my G. And then say, what do you mean? A, B, C, D. You remember that? Okay, cool. E, F, G, H. Remember that? By the time alikuwa anafika Z, huyu jamaa anasema, hey, talk about keeping a record of wrong.
Yeah, man.
So I would tell somebody, any process, give yourself time, sit with your emotions. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. At the end of the day, when you look back, you'll be like, okay, what a roller coaster we were in. But here we are today. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, man.
Yeah.
How did you overcome your suicidal thoughts?
Oh, that was a crazy time, man. So I remember, so for therapy, they always tell you that everything here is confidential unless you want to harm somebody or you want to harm yourself. So I remember that time I was home alone. I used to live on the 9th floor, and I had this, what seemed like an innocent thought. I'm like, my daughter is dead. She's on the other side. I want to see my daughter. Therefore, what's the logical thing to do?
To go
and see her on the other side. So I started battling that, bought myself some alcohol, drank a good measure, and then went and just started staring at the balcony. I'm like, okay, so there are trees here. If I throw myself, what will happen? Went through the whole thing, breaking news, Willis, Raburu found, all those things. I'm like, but that doesn't matter because these guys are not even here with me now anyway. So am I living for people? You know, like it's counter. Sometimes the truths work counter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, anyway, I'm not living for people. So nobody rules me, so I gotta go. So I guess I thank God that I called my therapist. I said, so, hey man, it's been real. Thanks for your job. Me, Nazidi. Hang up the phone. So she called our HR, who then called my close friends, and now all of a sudden my close friends are calling, Uko, tunapitia. Like, Z, tunapitia mi hata siko home. But, they kept, so they were interrupting my thoughts. Every time they would call me, they interrupted my thoughts. But at this time, I actually I'm ready to jump. Then I just started shaking. I started crying. I felt so weak. I got on my knees, literally crawled back to the sitting room, shaking, and I was crying. I couldn't breathe. It was like, I think now I know probably it was a panic attack or anxiety attack. I couldn't breathe. I was shaking. I was crying. And the world was just like, just dark. My head is also spinning because I'm high. And I just remember just saying, Jesus, just help me. And then there was a calm that came through. And so people have different thoughts of everything. But for me, those are pivotal moments in my life where I know that Jesus literally yacked me out of the mouth of death, And from then, I remember I was like, oh, what almost happened? But it's not that they ended. The thoughts didn't end. But as I kept going for therapy, there's a time I remember I told my therapist, you know what? I'm going to live because that's what my daughter would have wanted me to do. And she was like, that's great. That's amazing. But I'd rather live because you want to live. It's okay. That's a very good motivation.
It's one good motivation.
Yes, it's great. But down the line, the person who's here is you. So you need to live because you think life is actually worth living. What are those things that make life worth living to you? And number one goes back to love of self. First of all, I deserve to be alive. Mimi mwenyewe.
By yourself.
Yes, just by myself. I deserve to be alive because there are things that I need to do for me. There are things that I need to accomplish so that I feel like I have done what I was put here to do. There is just a greater reason for being here that I need to find out. So when I started, it took a while. again, when I started thinking about that, and still doing therapy, going back to, okay, what led you here? It was the thoughts about your daughter. So let's deal with that. Let's deal with that part. First of all, yes, at the big triumphal day of Mungu Kurudi, or eventually when you do die naturally, you will see each other again, right? So let's not hasten that process. That's going to happen either way.
It will happen.
Yeah, it will happen.
Yeah.
But between now and then, what are we doing? Yeah, so that by the time hata unafika huko, hata yako like, you did some, sir. All
Proud
right.
of you.
Yeah, I'm proud of you, sir. But first person who should be proud is yourself. So I kept dealing with that, and then now I started just looking at life different in terms of it's a gift. If I give you a gift, let's say like
My Turkana, it was actually a gift.
Yeah, so like if somebody gives that to you, how do you treat it?
With a lot of respect.
Exactly. So
with a lot of respect, with a lot of reverence.
Yeah. The old line that we've been seeing a lot, life is a gift, that's why they call it present, right? It is a gift. So when you're given a gift, you don't just now, if you take it away, you kind of saying, but that's not to say that people who have committed suicide or are facing those thoughts, even now who are listening, we dismiss them. Because look at how such a simple thought just developed. I can't go and see my daughter.
Yeah.
Just that.
And then
other people, I feel like I'm a burden.
Yeah. Let me lighten other
people's. Yeah. Or I don't think I'll ever. I say, rather, the late Bishop Alan Kuna used to say all the time, every problem has an expiry date. And every day you're living, you're closer to the expiry of that problem. So why not just wait it out? Taisha.
I saw someone say, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
And they were saying that, in the context of when things are tough and things are hard, you need to remember that this too shall pass.
Yeah.
But in the context of when things are great as well, you need to remember that this too
shall pass.
This too shall pass.
Yeah.
And so that you always remain aware that you're in a season. And just like there's seasons in life, there's your summer, your winter, your fall. Okay, we don't experience that here. But we experience our rainy season. We experience our hot season, which we are in now. We experience our cold seasons. They end.
And sometimes because of global warming, it switches.
Yeah,
so sometimes you could be happy, then like a curveball hits you, boom.
Yeah. Or it extends a little longer than, but it's going to end.
It's going to end.
And each season is useful for something.
Yeah. Guess what? Imagine the Israelites it was 400 years of slavery. Can you imagine year 2? And somebody tell them, Usijali, Mungu
This too shall pass. You die, your grandfather dies, your granddaughter dies.
If slavery ended, colonialism ended, the Moi era ended.
Even this one shall end. Itakwisha.
No matter what,
yeah,
it will end.
Yeah.
No matter what. There'll be another president. Yeah. There'll be another king. Yeah. There'll be another girl. There'll be another boy. There'll be another day. And something I also realized during that time is that, yes, you need to process your grief. You need to process all these things, and it's okay. And not to rush you, but I'm just also trying to tell you that, by the way, parallel to this, time is also not stopping. Okay, the world is not stopping to spin on its axis because you're going through this thing. So yes, you're going, by then, in all means, deal with it, process it, but also realize that on this other side, life is moving. Ivy, my fiancé, likes saying 2 things can be true at the same time. So this can be happening.
It's called duality.
Yes, this can be happening. But you remember this,
it's also happening.
You're processing, but sometimes you still have to go to work. You still have to, and that's why you go for therapy, so that you can try to do both these things at the same time. Yeah. You have lost a kid, but you have kids now to raise. You've lost a marriage, but
you have a relationship now.
You still have a relationship now. So what you going to do? Yeah. So it's like you say, it's duality.
I live in the coast, and
I
live in the South Coast in Diani, and I go to the ocean often. And I think one of the things that I love about being at the ocean is you experience a vastness of the ocean, and you realize how small in the scheme of things you are.
Yeah.
And even how small your big troubles are in the larger scheme of things. And it has kept me grounded, to, like you say, to also realize that there's life happening.
Yeah.
And even though your world may be crumbling or your world may be, falling in, like Chicken Licken, the acorn has fallen and the sky might be falling.
Yeah.
That the sky is holding somewhere else. And this too, I think I like that this too shall pass. And I think anyone who's going through a tough time today, I want them to remember that
this too shall pass.
This too shall pass.
And the vastness of life.
Yeah.
I like that. I like going online and sometimes just following some of these different pages because, and that's why people go to school. That's why I went back to school to do my master's and all this. Is because you realize that the world has so much to offer. Imagine yesterday or the day before or this year, let me say, now all of a sudden there's a new majority. Court has ruled this.
Yeah.
Rigiji says alipewa 2 billion and retire. That's the problem we're having here. On another place, China has an artificial sun that is brighter than the sun now. They've created an artificial sun that is brighter. In the UK, there are these guys I follow called, I think it's called Gravity. They are flying. Like deliveries in Afanywa, mtu akifly, they fly the delivery.
The jetpack.
Yes, with Rolls-Royce engines.
Oh, wow.
Two.
Like the Jetsons. Yes. Like what we used to see in the Jetsons.
Yes, but no, more like Iron Man. You know the kind, because he has one here, one here.
Wow.
Then he goes. Yeah. The military are training with that now. Wow. Even just the craziest guy that people are saying now, Mr. Musk they launched a rocket. Yeah. Like dunia. Like there's a syllabus in our Peter, things are happening, but because if you confine yourself just to a bubble or a news cycle, you will forget that things are happening around you. And that's also what helped me a lot, like even when I was in the media, because you're in a bubble where there's a lot of praise, there's these things happening, and you're this big shot in this bubble. But there is so much life outside. Look at Larry Madowo, for example. Who knew? So much has happened. Larry lives 35 years in 1 week.
Yeah.
But if you would have just said, me niko tu hapa. I remember when I was thinking about leaving Citizen as well, because I'd been there for 13 years, and I was just like, I feel like I need a change and a new challenge. And I don't know if, because I'm now at a place where if our visions are not really aligning, I'm not going to kind of stick around. So that was such a huge decision for me. But again, when I thought about the vastness of life, I could do other things, and just to be so comfortable with it. Like, I remember having this conversation with Ivy, and I told her, "Listen, baby girl, 2 things can happen here. I can quit, and we go to the dumps." Na hiki happened, my daddy always told me, urudi nyumbani. So tutaenda Kisumu, tukae, na tutaishi tu. Or we can take this leap and things begin to work out. So wejua tu, and remember we have kids, so wejua tu tutakuwa sawa either way. At least we'll be failing on our own terms. And that's why even like when I was going through the divorce, I also felt like so many decisions had been made for me. I wanted to watch her. If I fail, Willis, damn.
You made this decision, you carried it.
Fail. What a L. You know. And sometimes it's so in the book Hustle Hard, Hustle Smart, 50 Cent says embracing your L's is not just a fancy embrace your L's. It's sit with it. Remove entitlement. Okay, remove yourself. Sawa. It happens. See, ati wewe uko averse to pain and losses.
No one is immune.
Yes, and nobody owes you anything anyway. So just take it. When do you decide? That's what they call adulting. Learn your lesson, the other L, and take the leap, the third L. Yeah.
Oh wow, loss,
lesson, leap. Yeah.
Willis, who knew? Who knew? Dude, first let me say this. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry for the loss of your daughter.
Thanks, man.
I'm really, really sorry about that. I can't imagine what that must have been. I'm sorry about all the losses you've gone through, man. And you're right, we don't often recognize the grief that the man is going through. And bro, I'm sorry.
Thanks.
That's it.
Means a lot. Son.
So there's some cards in front of you here.
All right.
They have, these are conversation cards. I like to use this. I've been using this now in the last couple of years. It's just generally with conversations with people.
Okay.
For my work, but also just with friends. So they're in different categories. I won't tell you what category is which.
Okay.
You just pick a random color,
Right.
answer the question, and I will answer the same question you answer, and I'll do that, and we can go a couple
So
of
just
rounds.
random?
Just random. Let's pick.
All right. Wacha kwanza niingie ukambani.
Yeah, yellow.
Yellow.
Yeah.
No. Okay, sorry. All right. It says, what's the thing you like that creeps other people out? What's the thing I like that creeps other people out? Creeps is like scares, right?
Yeah, or maybe make some
Like
crawl
ew.
out of the skin. Yeah, like you. Wow. you think in soundtracks? Okay, like you. Uh-huh.
What's that thing that I like that creeps other people out? Because I definitely don't like horror movies.
Neither do I.
What's the thing I like that creeps other people out? I don't know, man. What is that one thing?
Is there something like you? So me, I'm thinking in terms of food. Is there a food that you like that creeps people out?
Well, generally, food. I'm a equal food employer.
Yeah,
I eat
equal opportunity.
equal opportunity. Mi nakula zote, zote katika zote. I don't know.
Neither do I, by the way. I don't know if I have an answer to that. Okay.
Maybe the people will tell us.
I'll pick a random.
What creeps them out, yeah.
If you could have any superpower, what would you choose?
Invisibility.
Invisibility, why?
Yes. Because I like to, how they say, I like to be the fly on the wall on that story.
Yeah.
I like to be there, like after I'm in my pitch. I like to leave like, what do they really think about me? Sometimes I like to ask that. But also because sometimes you just want to like,
Sure.
Willis ako?
Amanda?
Ako? Not in terms of, I just want a place. Nataka tu kukua place. Nataka nyamaza ni chill. I don't want nobody in my business. I don't want anybody to know where I am. I just want to chill. My phone is off. Technology in there. Ata NIS hawezi nipata. I just want to be disappear kidogo. Then I can come back.
That's the thing that you like that creeps people out.
You found the answer.
If I could have any superpower, for me it would be teleportation. So I love to travel. And I just like the idea of being right now back to the beach. Because I'm in this concrete city.
Yes. Kwenye beach party.
Go back to the beach. And then I'm like, how does a beach in Fiji look like? I'd like to teleport. So that would be mine.
Mimi ni kuwa invisible.
Pick any other random one.
Any other color.
Yeah.
What book has made the biggest impact in your life? It would have to be the Bible.
Oh, wow. Okay.
2 books. I'll say the one is the Bible. And the Bible has had an impact in my life because it's like an onion. I keep discovering
the layers,
layers. Sometimes you look at a scripture and you're like, what? I didn't even know that that's possible to deduce from this scripture. And let me see, I'll try to look for an example. I remember just even like I said, 1 John 4:8, the God is love. Yeah. But then I also remember, I think it's Ephesians where Paul says, and therefore I am a steward of this grace. And people normally say grace is unmerited favor, right? So if you have unmerited favor and God's grace is upon all of us, we don't deserve, almost all the things. I mean, if God was to use strict tabia zetu kutupatia what we deserve, wengine wetu tungekuwa tuko, I don't think that
we don't deserve it.
We don't deserve it. But then to say that then you're a steward of the things you don't deserve, that was like, what? What is Paul trying to say? It means that they still, as much as you're getting a merited favor, there's still an element of responsibility of the things that God is giving you anyway. Another one is when in the Bible, Moses said, show me your glory. God said, no, I'll show you my goodness. So then the goodness of God is the glory of God. So I'm like, what? One of my favorite scriptures, Exodus, two of them, Exodus 14:14, the Lord will fight for you, you need only be still. But to realize that then see boy Israel is young, all right, he's gonna fight for us. Guess we don't need to cross the river, we don't need to do nothing. Let's just be still. So stillness is what I like to call active rest day if you work out. The only rest day, but you can walk, you can make the treadmill, you know, to swim. So the stillness in God,
take a walk in Karura,
you still need some sort of action,
yeah.
even as God is fighting for you. Because otherwise, Israelites and all to horsemen, he's going to fight for us, so we will be still. Come, horsemen and Pharaoh.
Yeah.
But they moved, they had to cross the Jordan.
When it was time to cross.
They crossed Ndoika. Another one is Esther 4:14 that says that deliverance, if you are quiet, then deliverance will come from somewhere else. But who knows that God has set you aside for such a time as this? The part we know is that part for who God knows that God has set you up for such a time. But for me, it was like, hold up. What did you just tell me?
It's called with or without you energy.
Hey, like so. God is like, we're going to do this thing. Yeah. Are you on board with it?
Yeah.
Or are you not?
Yeah.
Yes, that's
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it's definitely the Bible for me. And it's had huge impact in my life. And I think one of the greatest things I thank my dad for is introducing me to the Bible and Christianity. And my dad taught me how to pray. He literally would listen to your prayer. Willis, pray today. Umalize kuomba akwambia sasa kwa hii prayer huku quote as a scripture, what is the basis of this prayer? Hey, what? So you go back and you have to I remember you say like, hey, because we used to pray every day at 7:30. So my dad was like, lazima usome Biblia.
7:30 in the morning or
in the evening, right after news. So ilikuwa news,
and then
tuombe, tukule. Na watu waende wadoze. So still happens today. Tukipigia my dad hadi leo 7:30 hata shika simu. Inakuwa time ya kuomba. So it's definitely the Bible. For me. Good book for you. Which book is it?
That's crazy, man. So for sure, the Bible has had incredible impact on my life, and I loved reading the Bible. I make reference to scripture a lot in my everyday life, and even in my work life. So that has had incredible impact on me, and I think it's just a book of wisdom,
right?
You know? But for the sake of creating some diversity for DEI, I'm currently reading. Oh, so I've had so many.
Oh, I have thought of another book, but go.
Which one?
Instinct by T.D. Jakes.
Yeah,
that one also helped me a lot, and that was during that time as well. Man, how did I forget about Instinct? Both the teaching I was watching and the book, because he talks about how there's this illustration he gives about a lion. If you take a lion, put it in a cage, and every day, you're giving it nyama, take the same lion, king of the jungle, put it back in the jungle. Open the door of the cage, it won't leave. Because it is used to being caged. So, but after a while, atokitoa push enda. If you leave it around the jungle for a while, because of its natural instincts, it feels like it has an urge for, but I need to hunt, I need to do this thing. So you're talking about the environment sometimes can, again, back to our initial fog, your instincts. And you need to be really aware about the instinct to change, instinct to move, instinct of what to do, discernment, they call it. So that's another very, instinct was a book.
I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Thank you, because you've given me some time to think through mine. So one of my favorite authors is Malcolm Gladwell. So Malcolm Gladwell has written the book Blink, Tipping Point, David and Goliath, What the Dog Saw and Other Stories, Outlier. Maybe I've mentioned Outliers. So the Mafia, the bombers, I can't remember what the title. So he's written books that have really expanded my mind. So I enjoy reading Malcolm Gladwell a lot. He has a podcast also called The Revisionist History. So it's very interesting. But I found this chick called Brené Brown. And Brené Brown has done a lot of work around vulnerability and shame.
And shame.
And she wrote a book called Daring Greatly.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I'm currently reading her other book, The Atlas of the Heart.
Yeah. All right.
And she I found Brené Brown at the time when I was doing this podcast. And this podcast, like you rightfully said, it gets us to a place of vulnerability where we say things that we ordinarily wouldn't have in random conversation, right? And her book, Daring Greatly, validated me. It validated the work that I'm doing with just getting us to be more real, more authentic, more courageous with ourselves, and more vulnerable with ourselves. And she actually says that authenticity and vulnerability takes more courage than lack of it, you know? Yeah. And so that book has really given me like you're on the right path, you're doing the right thing, so Daring Greatly.
That what you said is I don't think if I say to myself that I've done all this work alone again, it would be a lie.
Yeah.
And I really do thank my fiancée Ivy, because she's really helped me in terms of that me being able to be vulnerable. Because, and this is the thing that I remember, this is the initial conversations, and also again, if you want to go back to your question about what would I tell somebody who's going through loss. So if you've been lost, if it's loss of a marriage and you want to date again, you will have to let your partner know, depending on the years between, when you want to jump into the next relationship or not. But no matter what, there are still some elements you will carry into the new relationship. Whether it's how free you are, what is your version of love, or hey, last time nilipeana hii alafu hii nikafanyika, or even sometimes, like I said, you don't switch it off. So birthday yake, anniversary yenyu, those days will still be there. Or just remember a thing that happened. That I remember sometimes in the initial stages where I would just wake up sad, and sasa utaki kuongea. Nasi ati ni your partner ndo amekufanyia hivyo, ni unafikiria tu. The heart is a complex organ.
Yeah.
Like, I really want to read that atlas of the heart.
It's a really interesting book, because what it does is that it helps give language to emotion. So like when she says like places we go when we are sad.
Right.
So she's defined the emotions like places. Atlas.
Right.
Geographical places.
Yeah.
So places you go when you're sad, and then now the range of emotions that then you feel, and it helps you define what sadness is, what fear. Maybe it's a place where do you go when you're sad? What do you? So the range of emotions that then it's a really good book.
I look for it.
Yeah.
So I was saying that because she really helped me a lot. Because she had gone through her journey. Like, by the time I was getting to meet her, she had also gone through like her own journey, and one day she'll talk about it. But she helped me a lot to understand being vulnerable. And she told me things like, even, you're in a cage, and even a golden cage is still a cage.
Yeah.
But you might be, pretty, but it's a cage. She helped me understand a lot of being vulnerable and what it feels like when you're vulnerable and you're not judged.
And you're safe.
What you talked about. Like when you're safe, then I can say, why are you sad? Kwanza sema niko tu sawa. But then you realize, hapana, huyu naye hakwangi hivyo. So unafunguka unamwambia it's ABCD, and you go through it. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to do the last one.
All right.
Close it. What's something you will never do again? Never. And then the never is in capitals. Get married.
Never do again.
I'm joking.
Oh my goodness Christ. One thing I will never do again is let people I don't know about never, because sometimes we're still, but mostly it's about respect and value for me. Now, most of my moves, I'm very clear on respect and value. If I realize that you don't value me, or you don't respect me, those two things, I won't stick around for you to show me more of how you don't respect and value me.
Yeah.
I'll just bounce.
Yeah.
And that has helped me a lot. And there are 3 statements, and I've learned all this from friends and also just from life. The first one I learned from one Mr. Dana said, who says, learn to fight early.
Okay.
Okay. So when you're in a relationship, in a business deal, let them know who you are early. These are the things I stand for, and if we go against these things, we're gonna have a problem. That's one. And then another one also is something I learned actually last week. I was just going through socials and I saw this quote, and it says, "Do not be shocked when people show you who they are, and don't expect people to show you who they are not. Because, for example, don't be shocked at somebody who betrays you if they betray themselves. Don't be shocked at somebody who is not forgiving if they can't forgive themselves. Don't be shocked at somebody who doesn't value you if they don't value themselves. So don't be shocked, right? That's it. And then again, the third one is from, again, Hustle Hard, Hustle Smart, 50 Cent says, do not be entitled. The world doesn't owe you nothing. And life is just a pretty canvas where all of us get to paint. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes it's Picasso moment. Sometimes it's a doodle, but we keep on moving. So for me, I just don't take disrespect and someone not value. I don't. These days, sikuisi mimi ni ruthless na hiyo. Me step. I walked away from a lot of money because of that. And I also learned that from my good friend here, Adele. We're having this story about some certain brands that approached and they devalued her, and then she said, you know what? Peace out. And then they came back around after a year. And so she was like, you see, the value was always there. So just stick and know your value. And even if Tyrese also said that don't mistake humility. Hadi sasa devalue. Because I mean, there are times when anyway the rate card ni 200k but watakupatia 80k, utaichukua kwa sababu I need this, and this is this thing I can learn this, so you kind of trade. The difference I'll get through ABCD. But there's a time when sasa hiyo 200 ni 200 kama utaki.
It's okay. And I've learned to do that, by the way. I'm like, the value doesn't change because your budget is small.
My brother, there you go. My man.
It doesn't change because your budget is small. So we don't peg my value in your budget.
That's right.
My value is exactly what it is.
As Jeff Kwenanga always says, I am an aeroplane, but every time you get on me when you're at the entrance, left, not right. Tuko business na first class.
Exactly. I like it. Something I would never do again is carry unnecessary shame. I think shame is a useless emotion. I think, there's remorse.
Right.
That's a useful emotion. It gets you to get from one place to you realize this is my fault. This is what I could have done better. I've hurt these people. This is how I remedy this. That's remorse. Shame is just a weight that is placed. Shame on you.
Boom.
And then what? I think shame is a useless, unnecessary emotion. I will never carry shame again.
Never, ever.
I'm done.
I like that.
Bro, thank you.
I like that. Thank you.
Willis.
Thank you.
Willis, first, let me say this. You're a good man.
Thank you, sir.
And I mean that. And I'm so impressed by the man that you're becoming. We've known each other, but we've never really
interacted and spoken
like this. And my knowledge of you has been from what I see on the screen and what I read. But I've always known that there's more depth to you. And this is why I wanted you on board. And my assistant also said, Willis was like, right, let's do this. I am so glad I've met you this week.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad I've met this version of you. And so, bro, I pray that everything that you're hoping for in this season of your life, that it comes to pass. I pray that, all the good things that you deserve follow you. And I hope and pray that, that this, where you've come from, these losses, that these losses have meaning for you in this life. And there's a part of scripture that says I'll paraphrase because I don't remember exactly what it says, but it could be in Colossians. It says that let me paraphrase it. It says something about us going through trouble or loss, that we can help others, so that we might be able to help others go through it. I forget the right phrasing for it. And I can tell you for sure that the work you've done here today is going to be useful for other people. So thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. And also, for you, man, I do hope you get to cry.
Yeah.
I think also, just like from the first time I heard you, and even that's why I remember when you called me, I was like, let's do it.
Yeah.
It's because, same thing I can say for you. The work that you're doing for men and the women who love them is incredible, because we need to be in a place where we are vulnerable, we are authentic, and we're true. Because you could be vulnerable and haikusaidi. But if you're vulnerable and people are helped because of it, it means that then you are right squarely there where this is it. This is the thing that you are carved out to do. And of course, there's always growth that's going to come. And I know with this new season, there's going to be much more. And I pray for much more for you in that regard.
Thank you.
And I tell you what, there's this, and this is what would be like my parting shot. Very popular passage of scripture. Jesus is on the cross. He about to go. And Azidi. There are two thieves. One of them says, Bana, si ujiokoa.
You're the son of God.
God. Sawa ujiokoa. And this other one says, but you know, umutu, sisi tuko hapo kwa sababu
we deserve to be honest.
So, thief mwingine ameshapitia therapy. Yeah, najua. Sisi we deserve to be here. But then Jesus turns around and says, today, si kesho, today, you'll be with me
in paradise.
Leo hii. To somebody who is a thief, wamehukumiwa wote pale. And even him is in his own pain, he's suffering, and he's going through all these things. But still, even in that, it was an example. So in this case, in this story, you are the Jesus. Ulikuwa umelimwa, you've gone through all these losses, you've gone through all these things. That was season 1. Umelimwa, umepigwa vita, but here you are dying. But in your last breaths, you turn around and tell the man next to you, dude, usijali. We're going to be together in paradise one day. Paradise is healing. It is no shame. It is clear and no fog. And that's what you're doing, man. You are helping that person at the cross as you are suffering. But at the end of the day, you still show up. Now you're showing up in season 2 telling us, imagine ilikuwa hapo, look, put your finger here. Nimemaliza. And we're moving on. So you're, like they say, you are the Jesus some people know.
Wow.
So just keep doing you, man. Keep doing you. Na Mungu akubariki sana.
God bless you too, bro. Thank you so much. I don't know what more to say. See you on the next one.